everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Contact Lost, the Polish, now half Polish, half American podcast about Warhammer 40k, competitive Warhammer 40k. And we focus, for the last 7 episodes, I think, we've been focusing on the World Team Championships, or the WTC for short. I'm sure you know what this is. I'm sure you've also caught that in one of the episodes if you've been a regular listener, that we will be there to provide like the studio with Nathan, with Joker, who sadly is not with us today. And we are going to be doing coverage, hopefully interviews, and many, many, many other cool things. So bear with us, because we will continue these series pretty much until the event itself, and then hopefully we can either meet each other or see each other or hear each other while we are there. So I'm your host, Tweak, as usual, or Tomek, and with me I have my, I can now say, trusty co-host, Nathan from StatCheck.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Nathan. And since this series is about like the top 10 from the previous year, so we came to the point where it's time to talk about Team Sweden. And to talk about Team Sweden, we have Team Sweden's captain, Jonathan Sleigh-Johnson. Yes, I didn't mess it up. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello. Glad to be on.
Happy to hear that. So to move away from this awkward introduction and to kill the awkward silence, I guess we can just simply jump into questions and see where this takes us. So, Jonathan, I think I will start with the question about last year. Last year, you came in top 10, which is no small feat. You took 7th place. Is this, or was this, a place that your team was satisfied with, or was it sort of below your ambition? How would you rate your performance from last year?
I think we were satisfied with it. We had a couple of close games. Like we had a very close game against Australia. Well, not close. We were very close to drawing the game versus Australia. So I think we felt that there was definitely the possibility of doing even better. But in the end, I would say we were quite happy with the results, because we also we missed a few armies on the get up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I would say that in the end we were happy with the result. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So were there any lessons learned, any conclusions? We ask everyone about this, no matter if they came first or 10th. This question always appears because I think it's always useful to our listeners to learn from other people's lessons learned.
Yeah.
So what conclusions did you draw from that? Like, or what improvements could be done? Was it the matrix, the pairings themselves, or the actual choice of armies, or were there mistakes during the game that shouldn't be repeated? Which one of those was it, or was it like a mix of those?
I feel, I mean, there are always mistakes there. There's gonna be a matrix mistakes. No country will do a perfect matrix. It's the amount you differ by, or if you accidentally think, for example, that Crafted wins or Harleys, that would be an insane take. So yeah, no, I think our biggest mistake, if I go down to it, is the fact that we missed on Necrons. We did not bring Necrons. So I think our biggest mistake was in maybe the army selection, and I would attribute that to the fact that the meta changed just a few weeks before WTC into Nachmund.
Mm-hmm. And that caught you by surprise.
So definitely army selection was our biggest mistake last year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And what steps are you taking for this year's WTC to kind of address that? Are you guys spending more time in army selection, or have you just, because the meta is in such a shifty kind of state at early 10th, and with the newest balance patch, how are you kind of taking steps to address that this year?
I do think we have a much wider, what do we call it, playtest group this year, with many more people involved in the team, not just the 8 people. So we have a wider testing pool, and honestly, we also have more time this year.
Mhm.
At least it feels like there's more time. I think that Nachman gave us less time than this 10th change did. And sure, this 10th change is bigger, but figuring out what armies are good is not that hard this year, I think.
So are you using
At least not the
anything?
top.
Are you
Yeah.
using anything specific to actually establish what those armies are, or do you follow, sorry, like the meta checks, stat check perhaps, or are you basing your choices, your decisions on your own experience?
I mean, I think anyone does both, right? There's been a lot of talk, like in our Discord lately, about trusting your own testing, and I think at one point you have to trust your own testing, but also if your testing varies widely from, say, tournament results, then maybe you could be doing something wrong. So I think a wide world view and your own testing is the way you get there in them.
That makes sense. When we're talking about kind of, you said you have a much wider like testing group this year. How big is your testing group, and are those all people who could potentially be on the playing team, or do you have like a playing team and then a testing team, and then like non-playing people beyond that, or how is the Swedish team kind of set up?
Well, I think yeah. So basically, it's a wider team from, say, the top of the Swedish like competitive meta. It's all done through Discord. It's a Discord community where people have access to the like, what do you call it, in team consideration part.
Mhm.
And then so it's the team and the like extended team, or like people that want to play in the team in the future that has potential, or like stuff like that. So that would be the extended team, and then there's also non-playing people involved in that as well.
Okay.
Okay. What do your preparations look like? I mean, we've spoken to many teams already, so we've heard. I don't want to say we've heard it all because that's definitely not the thing, but I think we get the rough idea of what certain teams do and what teams prefer not to do. And the common theme is a lot of TTS. The common theme is, for the majority, going to international events. So,
Hmm.
is it also common for the Swedish players to travel abroad to play and gain experience, observe what other teams do? And then, second part of the question: do you play TTS as well, or any TTS leagues or something like that?
I'll start at the second part
Mm-hmm.
because it's more interesting. We did a lot of TTS scrims in ninth, at the end of ninth, versus other nations, and we also joined some TTS team leagues, like the Copenhagen team leagues.
Oh, right. Okay.
I think it was Copenhagen. We played in 2 times or something like that, with a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a like pickup team between team members and potential team members. Yeah, so we were quite on it at the end of night with TTS versus other nations. In 10th now, our TTS has been mostly internal testing, like one-on-one with people observing to get a better view of what's actually happening in the game. Yeah. And then as for the international, I think we're not that good at having an international presence on the tournament scene,
Mm-hmm.
in either singles or teams, I would say. So I think that is an area of improvement. We have last 2 years, we have gone to the least secret team tournament in the world in the UK.
The home nations.
This year we only yeah. This year we could only send half a team because the invite came very late. But the year before we were a full Swedish team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So today, actually, is the day when I think it's called Pyra Teams Cup, or like Pyra Teams Championships or something like that. There's a
Yeah.
Polish secret tournament for teams that Scotland, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, 2 teams from Poland, and God knows who else have been playing. it is. You can see it on Tourney Keeper. I can already reveal, I guess, that guess what? Poland won. But
no.
Poland A. But you won't see the lists in Tourney Keeper because they are all hidden. Like everyone is
Yeah.
very secretive. I mean, obviously the teams over there saw what their opponents brought, and saw what their opponents potentially could bring to the main event. But you won't see the list on Tourney Keeper. What do you think about endeavors like this one? And would you like to be part of it next year, for example?
Yeah, being part of it is always like, yeah, I could definitely get a team together to do it. So yeah, for sure. I think they're good. I think secrecy in the, like my old captain when you'd say, internet has ruined 40k, and has also ruined the need for secrecy. The home nations I've been a part of, and the one this year, there were no lists in that I would say broke the meta, or the Americans couldn't have guessed were there. It might be a bit different now, but also I know that there is a list document for this team tournament, and some people that shouldn't have it already have it. So I
Oh
think
boy.
secrecy
I
is
see.
very, very hard in the age of the internet.
I love this
And also
espionage
it's a
aspect. That's
yeah.
just some spy versus spy, with some national teams, just kind of trying to figure out what everybody else is bringing. I guess kind of on that note,
Yeah.
where we're talking about kind of relationships between teams and these secret tournaments. This isn't a hard question, I suppose, but Sweden, like historically, has been pretty close to the United States. Is this still a relationship that Sweden and the United States have? Are you guys still doing scrimmages and things together? Or has Sweden kind of been branching out to form relationships with more teams other than the United States? Because you did attend, like you said, the last two home nations as well.
I would just say yes to both. We did. America was the team we scrimmed the most in night, 3 times, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did scrims with other teams as well. So I mean, yeah, we're keeping that up, and we're also branching out. So
I like that. That's also a secretive answer to the question.
and not meant to be, really. I mean, it's just the truth.
So tell me this, because I really like what you said, although I would like you to expand on it a little bit. You said that internet has ruined the secrecy of 40k. How? Why? What do you mean?
Well, this is not my opinion. This is my old captain's opinion. But just that with information so readily available everywhere, first of all, it's made everyone better. And I do know, I agree that the skill of 40k is no longer coming up with the best list. Like, I don't think the skill of 40k is figuring out this list that no one else has figured out, because if you have a thought or of an interaction within an army, then someone else will have already thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
Almost always.
But does that mean that this was part of the previous events, for example, where the Discords, podcasts, and all the like internet communities were not that spread out? That part of the WTC or ETC was okay. So the least secrecy was part of the whole fun, I guess.
I mean, that depends again where you laid. Where does your fun come from? Is it from writing lists or playing the game perfectly or learning from the game? But I mean, for sure, when I played back in 3rd edition, it was much harder to find a good list, because you couldn't just go on the internet and find one. Right?
But would you also say that, let's say, the skill of the team in the past boiled down a lot to how they built their lists? I guess this is something that Typhus said in Enter the Matrix in one of the episodes. I think it was pretty much in line with what you're saying right now. The teams would come to the event better or less equipped, but equipped with their own ideas, and sometimes the list would completely catch the opponents by surprise. So is that also your is that gone now?
It's not completely gone. Also, just to be fair, I have only played one WTC before this one. But like when I them told the stories of Sweden's greatest loss versus, say, Russia, where no one understood Russia's list. Like our matrix in that pairing was completely green, and as they tell it, they got a total of like 5 points away from that game
Wow.
because they did not understand any of Russia's list. They got full green pairings and they lost the worst that have ever lost. So I don't think that could ever happen in today's 40K.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Makes
that
sense.
doesn't mean it's not like, because like last year Australia still brought some weird lists that really did well for them. But it's not to the point where you look at a list and you go, I have no idea how that works.
Okay.
Do you think that there are just some tools as well that people use a lot now that are just kind of, you said that, well, I guess kind of attack the question a little bit differently. Since list building's kind of not the stage at which we're talking about for like true skill development for players, are we talking about more now that we have TTS and things like that, that we can practice and like the overall skill base of a 40K player has improved because of those like tools that are available?
Yeah, for sure. Like the average 40K player today is probably miles better than they were even 5 years ago. And 5 years ago to 5 years before that, it's also just not recognizable in the level you could get to.
I guess we can go back to a Team Sweden question since we kind of went off on a tangent about how the internet's both awesome and terrible. No, it's great. Tangents are amazing, but it's wonderful to also realize, like, wait, we're supposed to be here for a reason, right? So how does Team Sweden select its team members? You mentioned like a little bit about a league, and then you mentioned kind of some rankings. Does Sweden also have like a league that they use? Okay.
It's not a league. We have an internal ranking system that is based on the last 1.5 years and the top 6 tournament placings during that year in Sweden. So that ranks the players. And I think it is the 1st of September every year. The top 3 from this ranking is picked for the team. Oh, they're asked if they want to participate in the team. And that is the 3 first players. These 3 players are then tasked with selecting a captain, either from within themselves or from someone else in the rankings. And then that captain basically picks the rest of the team. But I mean, you could just pick it all yourself, but mostly it's a team effort, right? So, and then there are some other restrictions, like I think everyone but 2 has to be picked from the top 10 of the rankings, and then you have 2 like wildcards from outside the rankings if you want.
So how did you go about picking the team this year, since you are the captain? So in theory, you picked the team, right?
Yeah. I was one of the top 3 last year, so I was selected from there. So yeah. But I mean, it's very seldom that someone comes up with a pick for the team and someone goes against it. It is usually pretty obvious what players are in the top.
Okay.
But
I suppose it's also...
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So, what was the defining factor for players getting on the team apart from like being in the top 10? Because I know that for example, in Poland, not every member of Team Poland is happy about the fact that the league players get chosen onto or get automatical places on the national team. It's just because, for example, they've been playing throughout the entire year with a single faction, and then if something happened to that faction, be it just because of a balanced data slate or an FAQ or something else, that player might not be as good with another faction. But that's just one example. So did you go for players who are the best in skill, or players who are faction specialists, or the contrary, players who can, they are quite good and they could pretty much pick anything there is, like any army, and do well with it? What's the thinking process there?
Well, I had when I was selected captain. Actually, this started last WTC when we were walking home on the last day of the event. I basically said that I will not pick any players that play only one faction. Okay. So that meant having a talk to some players that you need to have more factions if you want to be picked next year. I also placed pretty big, like, if you don't play TTS, it will be much harder for you to be on the team. Like the level of not playing TTS, you need to be, yeah. And then, yeah, so you need to be able to play a few factions. You need to play regularly, obviously. You need to play TTS. And also, I place a lot of value in if you are not on the team that year, that you're willing to help out. Like you're willing to test the matchups. You're willing to input in the discussion. You're willing to come to like the training camps and like the wider testing circle. And honestly, if you say you want to play on Team Sweden next year, I would expect you to come to WC this year and be a coach or be a water boy or something. Like, if you're not willing to travel this year, I don't really know if you would be in the running for next year, if I'm the captain. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like dedication is kind
Yeah.
of like the key trait that we're looking at. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about that, and then the advice also you'd give to potentials is traveling to the WTC. Is there other advice before traveling that they should, like steps they should take before traveling to the WTC? Should they get into a Discord? Is there, if there's a WTC team specific Discord or anything like that?
Yeah, we have a specific Discord where everyone can join, and then there's obviously a backstage of that Discord for the more people that are maybe trying out for the team, and we feel are in the right skill group to be part of the team. And then, so start by joining that and being part of the discussions, I would say, because that also gives us a wider view if you are going to be like team material, I have to say.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
who are the members of the team this year? First, talk about maybe the players, and then the non-playing like coaches and things like that.
Okay, so I'm gonna. Okay, so I am the captain, but I'm also the playing captain. Then we have Daniel Hesselberg, the last year's captain, who's also a player this year. Olof Svensson, Carl Abrahamsson, Jesper Anander, Axel Rydén, Andreas Holm. I'm forgetting one, aren't I?
Everybody always gets to the last one.
They always do.
You've got one left.
I got one left. Oh no.
So you're gonna owe somebody a beer if this takes longer than like 30 seconds.
TikTok. No pressure.
Our coaches are Sebastian and Sami, and the last player is Johan Norman. Yeah, there we go.
There you go. So
He was also the last person to be selected. So yeah.
But Johan, if you're listening to this, he owes you a beer.
Agreed. I had to close Discord because I was worried about it lagging, so I didn't have the list in front of me.
Excuses.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Don't worry, you're still, I think, not the slowest team to get all 8 off the cuff. So you're doing great.
No.
So do you have a set group of people who are responsible for your matrix, or is it like one person who's responsible for doing your pairings?
We have like a group of 3 or 4 that should be doing the pairings, and then the other people will be like standby if we need them, like if we need to ask them about a specific matchup on a specific table. But we like to keep it a bit smaller when we're at the table, because 8 people having input usually just messes it up.
Mm-hmm.
You mean, 8 cooks in the kitchen at the same time cannot make a dish, right? Yeah.
Also, someone has to build the tables.
True that. So we know who the team is, but I would like to find out something more about the Swedish community as a whole. I mean, first of all, does the team has like a strong community backing? Do people care? Will you have some sort of support in your Discord or somewhere? Do you think that there will be a bunch of people rooting for you at the event? Interesting to follow, the streams, the studio that we will be doing and stuff like that? Or is the group that is going actually the only people that are interested in the WTC?
No, I think that Sweden has a strong competitive community, and I think most of them are interested in how we perform at the WCC. Okay. So Obviously smaller than some nations because we are a small nation, but yeah, no, I think the competitive community at large does care.
Okay, so does the strong community mean that? I mean, does it translate to strong team performance, or and like team presence? Let's say, does Sweden have a lot of team tournaments that help you prepare for the event, or is it more solo or individual performance oriented? Which one of those is it? Because I've seen Neil advertising. I can't remember the name of the tournament, but it happens at Easter, I think. That I think is a teams tournament,
Yeah, definitely.
and he wanted to bring in foreign players to that tournament or foreign teams to that tournament as well. But other than that, is it team oriented, solo oriented? Which is which?
Okay, we have about. If you asked me 3 years ago, we would have a single team tournament every year in Sweden. But this year, we would have had 4 or 5.
Mhm.
So I think Team 40K is on the rise in Sweden. So
That's great.
yeah, some singles have been converted to team tournaments, and some extra team tournaments has just popped up. So
Hmm.
teams is definitely more
Okay.
coming out.
And do you have, because and I'm interested in that. I wanted to also consult this with the Polish national team, but maybe I'll do this at the WTC. But I'm quite impressed with what people do in England, in that they have local teams like, I don't know, Team Ignite, Team Hivemind, Team some I can't remember the full name.
You
Something
can
Mind
you can
Goblins.
just make some up. No one is
But
gonna know.
I
Yeah,
could, yeah, I pretty much could. But Team Mind Goblins is one that I can think of.
yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely a real team.
No, it is.
No,
It
they
is.
are a real
But
team. They are the
yeah,
Oh, dang.
luckiest team in the UK scene.
exactly.
That doesn't
They are
sound
known-
real at all. That
No,
does.
so I think they are
They are.
notorious for going to like those major team events and just doing like a slalom between the most difficult teams, and they somehow get to the top. No, of course I'm joking, but uh, the UK has this. They do this. There are a lot of local teams that center around like a shop or some a circle around the shop or something like that. So do you do this as well? Is this common in Sweden? And if not, would you be looking into doing something like that, organizing something like this in the future to even further enhance that team spirit thing?
I mean, there are definitely local teams, like usually based across the local towns of Sweden. Like there's a where I'm from is Västerås. We call our team
Right.
Västerås because yeah. And then there is like a team in the south of Sweden. There's a few teams in Stockholm. So yeah, there's definitely like a team connection
Hmm.
where you can play into that rivalry if you want, which we like to do in Westeros because there was a year when every single tournament was won by us, and then you can, yeah. So it depends how strong your team connection is, I would say.
Hmm. All right. Nathan, did you want to go next, or can I shoot with my questions?
Oh, I mean, you can go first, and then I'll ask a hard question after this next question.
I mean, okay. So moving slowly or moving back to like the WTC topic, uh, I think Sweden's best performance ever was second place. If I'm not mistaken. If I'm
Incorrect.
incorrect or correct.
Sweden has won the WTC, and not the WTC, the ETC.
The ETC, right? Okay,
One time.
Sweden has won. So
Yeah.
so we are actually talking to the winning team, but I see in the
Yes.
history. No, give me a sec. I
Are
can't
you
read
are
tables.
you stealing my question, Tomek?
That's why I asked.
Fine, then I'm gonna ask the question.
Fair enough. Okay, you go ahead.
So,
I'm
because
not
I
butting in.
have this question, courtesy actually of somebody who helped me out with finding a good bank of questions. So, what we've seen is that Sweden has transitioned from traditionally one of the top contenders from ETC days to kind of a decent but not top team in the most recent few, with the third place, and then more recently we're talking about 7th place last year, 11th place, 13th place in the last 3. Does the historical placing of the team have any weight on the current roster? And have there been any major contributing factors to changes in the roster to try to kind of get back to winning the ETC/WTC now? like trying to grow local competition, trying to grow more homegrown talent, or have there been challenges that have had the team kind of struggle a little bit recently with those things?
There has definitely been like more of a. There are more new people on the team every year, I think, and I think that like I was talking about the rise of the average player, like the average skill level in WTC, because I am a newer player. I have played 1 year on the WTC team. Definitely contributes to. I would say we have the strongest team we've ever had this year, but I also think that's true for most nations. So it's hard because it's hard to gauge against the rest of the world. I would say.
Okay. Do you think there are
But
anything? Are you
the-
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, the goal is definitely to get back to that top 3 performing team status, I would say.
Okay. Are you guys putting anything new into place this year compared to previous years to kind of get back to that point? Or have you made those changes last year because you did go up to 7th and those changes are now starting to kind of see success?
It's a hard question to say. I don't actually know. I think it's just. I think we have been like last year. We were a lot better at embracing TTS and embracing that whole practice. So I think last year we were more practiced than we've ever been, and this year we are even more practiced than that. So I think that's for sure is one of those things that does add up to more success.
Okay. And then you said you have one of the youngest teams. Is that like, are these a bunch of newer players to 40K? Or not young, but like less experienced WTC team, rather, I should say. From a WTC experience standpoint, rather, I should say.
Yeah, I would say we have a lot of players that started maybe their journey in end of 8th, start of 9th.
Okay.
So yeah, there is a new up and coming team but there's also lots of the like older people that played a million WTC. We have, for example, one player that did win the ETC back in day when he was like 18 or something. That has now come back 12 years later or something like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's
return to try to bring the team to glory, or does he play on the team every year?
He played last year, but he has had a break in between.
Okay.
All right. So the team is, let's say, fresh in experience and so on, and so are you as a captain. And I always try to ask as many questions as possible about captaincy because I find this extremely interesting, and also the most demanding probably of roles. Again, speaking from Polish experience, seeing how many hours and how much preparation Typhus has put into preparing the team for the WTC last year, I was in awe because like it was like a second job, and we spoke a lot. He was knackered before the event already. Then the event itself was really stressful, and I guess in a positive way. And then afterwards, I know that he was literally crying when they didn't secure the first spot and so on. So he took it very emotionally. But throughout the event, he has done a tremendous job in motivating the team, in keeping the team focused, uh, making or doing everything possible to obviously score the highest. So, how are you kitted out to do a similar job? I mean, have you had any chance to to test yourself in that role, like to motivate your players when they are down, or when there are hard matchups or something like this? I guess I'm trying to ask, how do you know that you are the right person to be the captain?
Tradition in Sweden has it that there is not a great fight for the captaincy. It is usually one person that volunteers and they are picked, and that is because it is a 40-hour job on top of your 40-hour job. So
Yeah, pretty much.
how do I know I'm the right person? I would say that I know I have picked the right people, and I think that knowing that you picked the right support staff and having picked the right players, I will know how to communicate with them. We have a good mix of veterans and new players who can help each other in the harder matchups, and we have for sure instilled the point that losing in teams is not losing for the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's losing for the team rather than losing. Yeah. So I guess, yeah. So no, I mean, I do not know for sure I am the best captain possible, but I believe that the team is the best possible.
Mm-hmm. And you have the last year's captain as well to sort of lean on his experience, I guess. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I was vice captain last year, basically. So that's also a thing.
All right, so you get
But we had
promoted
some
from last
experience.
year, basically.
Yeah.
Volunteered, it sounds like, more like a little bit.
No, promoted.
Promoted, okay. I don't know. It sounded like
Volunteered as
volunteered to me.
sacrifice, yeah.
Yeah, thrown under the bus, you name it.
He's like, oh man, we've got this new guy here, and he's great. He's going to be a great captain, and then diving out the other direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not that new, judging by what you're saying. And yeah, it seems like a ton of thought has gone into building the team. It sounds very healthy from how you are describing it. That you have this whole, let's call it, council or group of people to support you. The previous captain is also there, which I find extremely important to bring all that captaincy experience with him. So, are there any matchups, especially after last year, having seen that firsthand? Are there any matchups that you are looking forward to? Any teams that you want to prove something to, perhaps, or any teams that you simply want to beat down to the ground and pummel them until their heads explode?
Basically, he's
Sweden
asking,
is a neutral nation and has always been neutral. We have no rivalries with any nation. It is always important for us to beat the Finnish because that is like a national rivalry.
There you go.
And we did beat them last year. Other than that, it's like we would love to have revenge against Australia, which we were very close to beating last year. I would love to have a game against Germany, which we did not have last year. It was a stomp. So like stuff like that. Like I want to actually, if I got a pick, I would like to play against the top nations and put up a fight, win or draw or whatever. But we will to actually have make resistance or whatever.
Okay.
So
I'm just glad you picked a rival. So many other people are like, I don't want to pick a rival, but I'm glad that you picked the Finnish, that you want to finish them off. I love that.
Finish the finish.
Yeah, exactly. That's a terrible pun. God damn it.
Is it even a pun when it's just the same word twice?
I don't know. Maybe, kind of, sort of. I don't control the English language. It's kind of just three languages stapled together and we call it one language.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk a little bit about 10th edition then? So how has Team Sweden been adapting to the big changes in 10th edition? What are the team's thoughts on kind of like the army power situation in 10th? And then how are you personally kind of feeling about 10th edition?
Let's start how the team adapted to 10th edition. We have, like I said, we're doing TTS scrims. We are keeping a wide eye on the meta. We have had one practice weekend and we have one more to come next weekend. So it's just going through it. And like, I would say maybe the top armies are pretty certain what they are. And then it's finding those last 5th to 8th, 4th to 8th, and seeing how that matches up against what everyone else will pick for their 4th to 8th, and just can they get points against the top armies. What was the other questions? You did a 3-parter. So
Oh, I know. I just wanted to make it really complicated for you. You don't have like secret Death Guard tech that you're coming with first, do you? You wouldn't be the first team to tell us that they have secret Death Guard tech that they're waiting to show the world that Death Guard are actually good.
Well, I mean, they won a tournament, didn't they? So
Oh, that's
wouldn't be secret anymore, would it?
I think they came second, technically.
I love
But
the
yes.
Maybe.
and then
That's how much of attention I paid to Death Guard. Okay.
And then the third question was, how do you personally feel about 10th edition so far?
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that. I think this harkens back to where I talked about earlier, where the skill level might have, where the skill expression in 40k is. Because a big critique of 10th edition as a whole is that it's not as skill intensive as 9th. That some of the skill has gone out of the game, and it's very easy to play or too easy to play. And I think the skill expression simply moves somewhere else. It goes from the combat phase shenanigans to being better at target priority or some such. Because no one can ever play a perfect game of Warhammer. It hasn't been done. And if someone tells this they played it, they don't know what they're talking about. So even a simpler game is not a solved game. So to be short, I enjoyed 10th edition for what it is. Like, it is still Warhammer, and I still see a little ton of skill expression in it.
Okay.
And maybe the skill expression isn't that you beat Eldar. Maybe it is that you take 2 points from them where you should have gotten 1. You should be happy with that learning experience, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I like that answer. Everybody's like, yeah, you just throw that one person under the bus against Eldar, take the 20, and then just move on to the next one. I like that better philosophy of like, you're trying to throw that army into pull just like 1 or maybe 2 points off of them. I like that. And then I have a much easier question now. A fun question, even, as it were.
Is it birds?
No, it's not birds yet. Birds are the closing question.
Okay, not much.
Hold your horse.
That's the highlight of the show. Does Daniel plan on allegedly jumping in any canals this year or bathing in any canals this year? And will any team members be allegedly joining him in his canal escapades?
Well, the question is not, will Daniel bathe in a canal? The question is, will the captain bathe in a canal? Is the canal bathing connected to him or to the captain? And should canal bathing be connected to every captain of every team that does not win the WTC? That is my question to you.
Oh, are we going to try to start a bet where every team that doesn't win the WTC, their captain has to accidentally, allegedly bathe in the canal?
I mean, I didn't say it, but you did, Nathan.
I think it's still safer than getting a tattoo after a lost bet.
Well, as long as the tattoo's not in the canal, I think it's okay. Although I hear that Anthony has an open invitation for anybody to challenge him to a tattoo bet from the WTC Captains Group. So, if you want to get a tattoo or don't want to get a tattoo, you want to force Anthony to get a tattoo, you can join that bet. I'm just saying.
That man,
there.
That man has a problem with bets, and I will not take advantage.
Yeah, like gambling is not his strongest side, I guess.
He's definitely told us on our previous episode that he's dedicated a leg basically just to WTC tattoo bets. So there's just one leg that's dedicated to WTC bets.
Yeah, I guess for him a loss is not even a loss if he has a dedicated leg. So, but Jonathan,
no. He wants to get the tattoo, so
yeah, absolutely. So, he'll get in any sort of bet, I guess, just to get it. But a question from me that I wanted. I want to touch upon the topic of that espionage and so on, the spying on other teams that you mentioned. Part of that, I guess, at least listening to like previous year podcasts by people from Australia and from other teams, the Australians once said on a podcast that they made a mistake of entering with their teams lists into the Warmaster event that is part of the WTC, because they had someone from
Mm.
Team America just sit at their tables all the time, observing what their lists actually do. So last year, they drew conclusions from that. They didn't make the same mistake, and they brought completely different lists to singles than they did to teams. Uh, Apparently, or well,
Yeah.
from what we can tell, it paid off. Um, are your guys going to play in the warmasters event, and do you also plan on some sort of secrecy shenanigans with that, or not really?
Um, we have some people playing the War Masters. We basically what we said is if we have a secret tech list, then we would probably not want them to play that in War Masters. But also, I think those secret tech lists might not be suited for War Masters. So
Hmm.
playing something else there shouldn't be a big sacrifice. Um,
Hmm. Okay.
but if what you put into War Masters is a triple rate night, then what are people gonna learn?
Hmm. And I know that we're jumping around topics a little bit, but I wanted to come back to the topic of captaincy as well. Do you think that because of 10th edition, your job as a captain is going to be more difficult than it was last year, for example, in at the end of or like at, at the height of ninth? So the edition has maybe somewhat more randomness about it. Missions and cards make the games maybe a little bit more difficult to predict, or not really. Like, what is your observation so far, and do you think that your players will be able to give you reliable information from their games when you walk around, let's say, the tables and try to figure out what is the final score that your team is going to bring?
Um, Yeah, I think there will be an impact of that. Maybe not because it's more random, but just because we haven't had as much time to learn the matchups like you would have had if we say we played ninth at this WTC, then I would be pretty sure about all the matchups, and now it's harder to know. So yeah, you're gonna have more unreliable information, but I think that's just something you have to factor in, like
Hmm.
update it more often and uh, be more be faster to respond if a matchup doesn't go as you thought it would.
Hmm. Okay. Do you think this is still in the spirit of talking about 10th edition? Do you think that uh, because WTC released its own terrain pack, uh, but I guess at least from our like here in the north of Poland, our local community is currently having a discussion whether we should be following the WTC rulings about terrain, or should we try and stick to GW's original terrain layouts and so on. Uh, what do you think of WTC's terrain layouts, and do you see them being created in the future, or is actually GW now doing a great job of creating terrain layouts for tournaments?
Sorry, my that it broke down. I did not.
Oop.
Oh, and lost him.
we lost him completely.
Yeah, hopefully he'll
That's
come
a
back.
yep. If not, I'll just ask you bird related questions until he gets back. Just
That's fine.
we'll just start every minute until he gets back. I'll ask a bird related question.
Hmm.
The
I'll
first one
just
is,
yeah, go on.
would you eat puffin?
Uh, why not? I mean, I if it's well prepared, well seasoned, well served, why not? I would eat anything that is
Oh,
well served. And
I
he's
love
back.
that. That's my favorite answer to any question. I won't lie.
Yeah,
Also,
I mean,
welcome back.
so what happened? Did your battery die, or is it your headset that died? What happened?
He's muted.
He's muted. Jonathan, I think you're muted. Oh, okay.
Okay. So now
So,
we get to have bird question number 2. I'm kidding.
let me ask you a question. I don't know if you've heard
Sure.
about it. There was a show, a
Mhm.
very good show. I can't remember who made it. I believe David Attenborough was reading for it. It was called Human Planet,
Yeah.
and essentially in that show, they like each episode was about a different sort of uh, climate or area that people were able to inhabit and adjust to it. So it went from Arctica to oceans to jungles to blah blah blah. And in one episode, it's still bird related. They went to like Arctica or somewhere
Antarctica, yeah.
Antarctica, and they had some Eskimo guys interviewed, and the Eskimos showed them like a local tradition that was preparation of something called kivyak. And now kivyak is essentially a dish where they catch those little, I don't know, puffins or small birds. They twist their necks, and then they stuff them inside like a hollowed seal skin. So they stuff those birds inside, as many as possible. Then they close this hole, knit it closed, so so no air gets in. They put seal grease on it, so that it's like
Sealed and waterproof,
sealed
yeah.
and waterproof. And then they put it underground in rocks for a year. And then it ferments underground and so on and so on. And after a year, I think for someone's birthday or something like that, they remove it from underground, they open it, and they like share it like
Eat it,
chips. Would you eat that? That's my question to you.
Yes. So if somebody offered it to me, like in that fashion, like I would eat it. I'm not going to go out and seek some of these things, but if somebody's like coming up to me and it's like, you should try this, like this is a delicacy, I will try it. Like it would be rude to not do it. So
Can you
I'll do it.
hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, we can hear you.
We were just killing time with,
Yeah, no,
with
well,
bird questions.
We can hear you. We were just figuring out if your internet was stable enough, so we were talking about birds because that's the theme for this show.
I think I don't know. I think the pair of earphones I had distorted your audio too much. Most of this show, by the way, I have heard the very last of all questions and not heard the middle at all. So, but I think I did a good job.
So you've done an amazing job of guessing what we're trying to talk
love
about.
it.
But what I have surmised between human interaction now is that you only need to listen to the last 3 words to understand the question, and the rest is probably irrelevant.
Yeah, especially with me, where my questions are tangents of their own. So yeah.
Man,
this
seems
makes
much more stable now. So I think maybe the headset I was using was actually interfering a bit with the connection.
Fair enough.
That makes so many more of the things where I was asking 3 questions now seems so much more terrible. Because I was like, man, he just doesn't want to answer that middle question, does he? Now it makes more sense.
Right.
So I guess we'll just, where were we? 10th edition, right? That's right.
So the 10th edition and the randomness of it, I think, was one of the questions.
Yeah, no, I think you started with a terrain question, or was
Oh
it...
yeah, sorry. So so another question that I wanted to ask pertains to the WTC terrain. Recently, a terrain pack has been released. Again, is that enough time to properly trial and test it? And then the second question to build on top of that is, do you think we will need that in the future, or is GW actually doing a good job designing their own terrain layouts now?
If you want a game that has light, medium, and heavy tables, I don't think GW will ever intentionally do that. So I think we will always need the terrain pack. I also think that sometimes GW, like, they underestimate how powerful towering is, and then we need to adjust for that. And I do think that there will always be a need for different terrain at the WTC, even if we can. I think it's a good thing that we approach the GW style, like the perspex bases, perspex, whatever. And that's good. But I think GW maps at the base has problems that need to be addressed for teams.
And since you have differing levels of experience with kind of the length that people have been playing 40K, how are you getting some of the newer people to adapt to like the new decks that you're drawing from and stuff like that? Because not everybody played the old format where you drew mission cards, and that name of which just ran right out of my brain. Tempest of War, there we go.
There was Maelstrom of War, and then
Maelstrom,
there was Tempest of War. Yeah. I mean, I think most people have a background in, say, Magic the Gathering or other board games where you draw cards and you get a random objective or something you need to perform. And also this edition's cards are not that hard. Like, one of them is engage on all fronts, and if you are positioned properly on the board, you can probably get that one. And if you're not, then still not the end of the world. So I don't think this deck is that punishing for not knowing it, but it is quite rewarding for positioning to take advantage of what cards you have left. So I think a big part is realizing what cards are left in your deck, and that's something we've been discussing a lot.
Makes sense.
So according to your observation, have the games become shorter? Like, I know for a fact that there was a ruling that the games at the WTC are supposed to, I mean, they will be allowed to last up to 4.5 hours. Have you actually played a game that was that long?
This is hard question, because like a tournament game is not the same as a testing game.
Absolutely.
So I have definitely played 4.5 hour games where you could maybe rewind a turn or two just to see, like, test out a different approach.
Yeah.
But I think no tournament game of 10th would take more than 3 hours, and depending on how broken armies it involves, it can go much faster than that. I think this edition will play faster once we get used to it. But there's also some of not knowing everything at the start, so it takes a bit longer now than it will at the end of 10th edition.
Okay.
And then to rewind in a confusing way. Unless, Tomek, you had a follow-up question to that answer before I ask another question.
Well, not to this one in particular. I just have a bunch of other questions, so go ahead.
So for practice, so there is a philosophy that we were introduced to by Rude for his practice games, where he, during practice, and I kind of like this, I think this is great. And so I'm wondering if you also use this approach. Rude uses this approach during team practice where he'll walk over to some people rolling dice and he'll say, no, you fail all of those, and then walk away. Do you give your players scenarios and force failures and force them to try out different things during team practice? Will you just walk over and be like, no, you fail 5 of those saves, what are you going to do? Or you make that 12-inch charge, now what are you going to do?
Nothing, no, never something that extreme. I think the worst part of that is, like, you go first this matchup, or you didn't get the table pick, so you're playing on this table now, or stuff like that. And then, because you don't have enough time to get the right amount of testing into a normal game and not weird game to get accurate data. So I think those games where something random happens could be useful if we had more time. Say if we had a year to test this edition, then the last 3 months maybe should be that type of game. But I think for the short time we have, we need to play the most likely games where not something random happens. I think that is more valuable testing.
I like that answer. I'm gonna tell Rude all about it.
And but also, I mean, let's just say Rude might really like making his players suffer, and that's
making them feel miserable. That's a kink that he has.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna shame him for it.
No kink shaming on Contact Law Stat Check content.
Never, ever. Kinks and rants are very welcome here. So, Jonathan, I wanted to ask about something, and this is in relation to what you said, and in a way to what Anthony Vanilla said in the previous episode. No, it's nothing like crazy. But you said that, I think in your judgment of 10th edition, you said that essentially the skill gravitas in this edition might have shifted to a different place. So maybe it's not in combat, but somewhere else, like positioning or whatever. Last episode, Anthony said, or I think he even went further in his critique, and he said that he believes that at the end of the event, at the end of WTC, even though we have a victor, we won't be able to clearly say who the best team skill-wise is. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that taking everything about 10th edition into account, the time for preparation, the variability, the randomness of the game, and so on, that Anthony is right, or would you say you're on the completely other end of the spectrum?
Not completely other end of the spectrum. I would say that at the end of WC, we will most likely have the best team at the event finish first.
Okay.
Like, there is always a small like margin, and to be clear, when we poke skill in teams, it is not the 8 most skilled Warhammer players that is the best skilled team. Like, I wouldn't say that last year Australia had the 8 best, like, summed up skill level players that won the event. There were like other areas that matter, like the lists, the pairings, the being used to the heat. I don't know. Like,
adaptability in general. Yeah, absolutely.
So no, I would say that at the end of WC we will have 95. I would be 95% sure that is the best team standing up there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess that's going to be one of the final questions from me, and then we can move to the fun questions from Nathan. But let's say that's you said again that your team, that Sweden is doesn't have any enemies, it doesn't have any rivals, or maybe Finland, but other than that, not really. So which team would you be rooting for the most if, let's say, Sweden was not playing? Because obviously you'll say Sweden, but if not Sweden, then who, according to you?
Well, anyone but England, right?
Oh, I love it.
Yes.
I love how the world is unified in this situation. This is the true unifier of everyone going to the WTC.
If I have a bet that will get me a beer, that if America finishes top 3, so a bit there, but win the event. I don't think I have a good pick here, honestly.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, anyone but England, I think, will resonate.
I think that will be fine.
Yeah, and imagine the backlash if England actually wins. I think people will call for like redoing the event or something because it's just so bad now.
We're going to exile them, actually. They're just going to be exiled completely.
They have exiled themselves from the European
That's what
Union.
I wanted to say. They're good at doing that to themselves. We don't need to help them anymore.
Oh, man. Are we going to... do you want me to ask bird-related questions now? Because I'm sure everybody's real... It's not a...
That's why people watch the show for the bird-related questions. Let's face it. The rest is filler until you get there.
I mean, that's what we're not paying you for, right? So go on.
Man, nobody pays me anything for anything. So first we're going to talk about pigeons, because pigeons are everybody's favorite bird. Definitely 100%. Who wins in a fight? A pigeon from Stockholm or a pigeon from New York?
How many rounds?
We'll give you 3 rounds. It'll be a best of 3.
The thing is that no one is going to win the fight in the first round. And the American pigeon will not be patched up because he can't afford it. So the Swedish pigeon will be patched up, ready to go for 3 rounds, and thus wins the fight.
Man, I love how everybody's answers to this question either revolve around the pigeon being like a horrific mutant or just something else that's politically wrong with the United States. I love it.
It's where's Obamacare when it's needed?
It's true. Yeah. And then the second bird-related question, just because I want to make this rivalry even deeper, is who wins in a fight? A pigeon from Stockholm or a pigeon from Helsinki?
The pigeon from Helsinki has a knife, so it's not fair.
Oh boy,
100%. So yeah, I'm not betting against that.
And then, is there a bird that can beat a Canadian goose in combat?
The most fearsome bird I've ever witnessed was when I was in Australia, and it was seagull mating season. And there was literally seagulls falling out of the sky because they were attacking each other and killing each other. So I think the Australian seagull is the most fearsome bird.
but specifically during mating season. So we got to have a really strict time frame for this occurrence.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's all of my bird-related questions.
Yeah, I'll add one bird-related question, and if let's see where it goes, because I don't have experience with a lot of bird questions. But if a Swedish pigeon was to create a music band, what type of music would it be, and why heavy metal?
Heavy metal pigeon. Oh gosh.
We just created a new kind of bird.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to take this.
I feel like after the show, the pigeon is going to be this heavy metal pigeon is going to be Sweden's new logo, like on their.
I guess the heavy metal pigeon would go on stage and bite the head of Ozzy Osbourne.
Revenge.
Yeah.
I will note that was a bat.
Yeah, sure.
Pigeon, but
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's the best answer we could count for. So
yeah.
Right. So Jonathan, is there anything that you perhaps want to plug, or anything that you would like to make us aware of? Like, are there any Swedish podcasts or any international tournaments that you would like people to come to, or anything of that sort? Now is the time to do it, to make us aware.
Oh God, I don't have the dates of any of these.
No. But you can just mention the name and people will Google it or something. But
there anything? Yeah. There are several Swedish majors every year. Like literally, we probably have a tournament a month, all spread across Sweden. Easy flights to Västerås from England, easy drives to the south of Sweden from Denmark and Germany and Netherlands. So if you're interested in coming to play a tournament in Sweden, then just hit us up, or they hit up the Swedish 40K on Facebook, and we'll get you in touch.
Cool. We never touched upon this, but I guess Swedish tournaments, from all the tournaments that happen, they do count towards ITC, right, or something like that. I think. Yeah. That's something that, for example, Poland cannot really boast, because we never did the ITC. But I guess in Sweden, that's something that might actually bring people in, right, who want to score some points. There are some majors to win that can grant them ITC points.
Yeah, for sure. The ITC is a dying system in a lot of ways. So, but yeah, for sure.
But if you want to keep it alive, then do come to Sweden. I guess that's how we can.
Did we keep it alive though? Is that the?
I love that the shots fired on this episode are mostly at the ITC at the end of the episode.
No, but now I need to ask, why do you think so? Like, again, I know very little about the ITC apart from the fact that it exists, that like the English, for example, play towards it and like to see their placing in it. Why do you think it's dying?
That depends on what you want to see the ITC of. If you believe that the ITC is to pick the best player in the world every year, that is not what it does. It simply picks a person in America or England to win it. It doesn't show you the best player. Something like StatCheck might show you the best player, but but also it's very hard to pick this. And I think any farmer ranking system that doesn't have any ELO rating is just fundamentally flawed. If it doesn't matter who you play against, if it only matters how big the event is, it is not a very good ranking system.
This is my favorite answer to this question so far, because it's just my answer to this question.
It was a good system to get people to play lots of tournaments during a time where we did not have a better choice. But
yes,
it is time.
It is time for the ITC to be used as the foundation for a new system built on top of it.
Maybe run by GW, maybe not. But like there needs to be. I think the end. If you want the ranking system that everyone uses, it needs to be run by GW. How feasible that is, I don't know. But...
Okay. That's an interesting take and an interesting way to finish the episode. But if you still want to score some points in this dying system, head on to Sweden. I guess that's what I can say to top it off. Nathan, any final words, final comments from you?
All I want to say is that I just want somehow to find out if there's a tourism department in Sweden and if they have like a motto that we can put right here, like just at the end of the episode.
Oh God, I don't know this.
We wouldn't be able to pronounce it, so
You could literally just say anything in Swedish and we would just believe you that was
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah,
pretty
I'm
much.
sorry.
I actually
don't
have nothing
anything.
else.
all right.
Oh, I guess goodbye.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, before I allow you to say goodbye.
Damn it.
Yeah, just one more thing. I mean, to all our listeners, if you like what we do, please let the world know about it. So let the world know about it either by leaving a like, subscribing. I think we are about to hit 600 subscribers, so help us reach that number. Also, tell a friend simply that there is Contact Lost, that they do what they do, and if you like it, yeah, let them know about it. We're not asking you to write reviews because I know that it's painful and people don't really like to do that. But if you could give us a thumbs up or something like this in any of the media outlets, that would be much appreciated. And then hit the bell button as well, because our channel on YouTube is probably going to be one of the places where the WTC studio material goes, both live and afterwards. So if you want to stay up to date with this, or if you want to have easy access to this, then that's one of the ways of actually doing it. So yeah, please help us grow, and we will repay you with quality content like this one and some more bird related topics. And now is the time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jonathan, for joining us and for being open about all those things that we tried to squeeze out from you. And to our listeners and everyone else, until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.